5. The Ox Who Won the Forfeit. Long ago, a man owned a very strong ox. The owner was so proud of his ox that he boasted it to every man he met about how strong his ox was. One day, the owner went to the village and said to the men there, "I will forfeit 1,000 pieces of silver if my strong ox cannot draw a line of 100 wagons." The men laughed and said, "Very well, bring your ox and we'll tie 100 wagons in a line and see how your ox draw them along." So the man brought his ox into the village. A crowd gathered to see this sight. 100 carts were in line, and the strong ox was yoked to the first wagon. Then the owner whipped his ox and said, get up, you wretch! Get along, you rascal!" But the ox had never been talked into that way, and he stood still. Neither the blows nor the hard names could make him move. "Get along, you rascal!" At last the poor man paid his forfeit and went sadly home. He threw himself into his bed and cried, "Why did that strong ox act so? Many a time he has moved heavier loads easily. Why did he shame me before all those people?" At last, when he got up and went about his work, when he went to feed the ox that night, the ox turned to him and said, "Why did you whip me today? You would never whip me before. Why did you call me wretch and rascal? You have never called me hard names before." The man said, "I'll never treat you badly again. I am sorry I whipped you and called you names. I'll never do so any before. Forgive me." "Very well," said the ox. "Tomorrow I'll go into the villages and draw 100 carts for you. You have always been kind, master, until today. Tomorrow you shall gain what you lost." The next morning the owner fed the ox well and hung a garland of flowers around his neck. When they went to the village and the men laughed at the man again, they said, "Did you come back to lose more money? Today I'll forfeit 2,000 pieces of silver if my ox is not strong enough to pull 100 carts," said the owner. So again the carts were placed in a line, and the ox was yoked to the first. A crowd crowd came to watch again. The owner said, "Good ox, show how strong you are. You fine creature." He patted his neck and stroked his sides. Flowers around his neck. At once the ox pulled all his strength. The carts moved until the last cart stood where the first had been. Then the crowd shouted and they paid back the forfeit the man had lost, saying, "Your ox is the strongest ox we ever saw." And the ox and the man went home happy.